Hi, I'm Jeffrey Slayter. After working with 3 million people in 13 different countries and having the privilege and honor to share stage with other thought leaders like Sir Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, Dr. Demartini, Tim Ferris, and many others in the areas of self-awareness and leadership, what I'm going to share today is I'm going to speak about the unspeakable, which is not talked about in the areas of self-awareness and leadership and how it applies directly an application to high-performing entrepreneurs. So buckle up. It's a fun conversation with Dov and I. It's incredible. Join in if you're serious about transformation and leadership.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us here on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to take a leadership from a completely different, completely non-traditional view and ask, can leadership be a sacred path? There you go. If you're a new listener, a new viewer to the show, I want to thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we're also honored and grateful to be cited by Inc. magazine as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody that you know. And remember, we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. Watching or listening to this show, you're either a high-level executive, an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a leader in some capacity. And as a leader, we all know that we're held to some very high expectations. Now, the interesting thing is that some of those expectations are real and maybe even appropriate, while some, well, they just may not be. Furthermore, we as leaders may be holding false restraints on ourselves, telling ourselves, this is not how a leader should be, or this is not what a leader should do. The question becomes, do these restraints make us better leaders, or do they make us less of ourselves and in turn make us less authentic and invariably less effective? My guest today certainly believes that this is the case. Jeffrey Slayter is a positive disruptor of psyches. Love that. In a good way. Having played the role of transformational coach and facilitator and spoken to over 3 million people from 12 different countries, he shared the stage with incredible thought leaders like Sir Richard Branson, you may have heard of him, who's the founder of Virgin, Dr. John Demartini, you've heard of him, he's from The Secret, Frank Kern, the highest paid direct response internet marketer in the world, Tim Ferris, 4 Hour WorkWeek, Tony Robbins, and a bunch of other amazing people. Jeffrey questions the validity of the beliefs that are holding leaders back. Having coached some of the world's leading coaches, Jeffrey Slayter has a level of mastery and facilitation that will have even the most skeptical of clients melting away years of being stuck in debilitating patterns. Whether you're building a billion-dollar company or about to break through to the 7-figure mark, there are some core human behaviors that Jeffrey will help you embody faster than almost anybody else. Some of the world's biggest game changers, social entrepreneurs, internet marketers, and consultants have reported that Jeffrey's golden edge is to integrate purpose with profit in a way that brings greater meaning to the work that they are doing in the world today. So please put your hands together and help me welcome Jeffrey Slayter. Woo! That was wild. Woo!
Oh, they're going crazy. Thanks, man.
Good to have you here, mate. Very good to have you
Yeah,
here.
it's really good to be here. Really good to be on the show. I've been looking forward to it, so thank you.
Absolutely. So tell our viewers, our listeners, where you're tuned in from today.
I'm in Byron Bay, Australia. So incredible Australia, which I love. Great place.
Yeah, so last time Jeffrey and I were speaking before we came on air in a previous conversation about, some of the places that we both know and surfing up there in Surfers Paradise and around that area. I mean, It is an incredibly beautiful place, and you're very blessed to live up there. All right,
I am.
You and I spoke about, and I even mentioned it at the beginning, that leadership can be a sacred journey. And one of the things that we spoke about off air was the power of ancient wisdom. And I want to start there because I want people to grasp that we're not going down the usual path of leadership here. We're going to go down a very different path. And ancient wisdom and how that is today, you and I are both seeing this in the work that we do, that it's impacting and affecting billionaires and industry icons, people that we think as being very buttoned up and very tight and, they would never go down that path. They're beginning to embrace sacred wisdom. Tell us about your experience of seeing this come about in the world and the clients that you're working with.
Yeah, I'll share with people that it's not for everyone.
No.
And ancient wisdom, while just to reframe ancient wisdom, it's beautiful that it's ancient wisdom, but it's actually wisdom that is for the now. So
Absolutely.
While it's ancient, what I've learned in my journey is that time is actually omnidirectional and multidirectional, and everything we've been led to believe about what time actually is, we can develop a different relationship with time. And so it's ancient wisdom for the now. And the now, like Alan Watts says, is one big smeared out now. So how does this apply to business and leadership? Self-awareness, as we know, is one of the most important attributes of a leader.
Certainly a decent one.
Yeah, a decent one, exactly. And just so everyone's clear, as I share this information, they can take what they like and they can throw out the rest. Ultimately, we are leaders and sovereign beings of our own path. And so the things I share with my path and true to me, they may not be true to other people. Absolutely. And they can take what they like. And Tim Ferris says he doesn't know a billionaire who hasn't worked with a psychedelic. And I can say the same. So what I can say is that for myself, I went through the journey of personal development and self-help books, and I found them to be good, but very surface. And it's rare that I find a good self-help book. And when I do, I'm a little bit shocked. And I do recommend your book, Fiercely Loyal. I read it. I'd be like, I usually don't read. There's so many books we get, but I read through it and I went, oh, this is good, because one thing you hit on in there, which was really good, was that leaders have to be in tune with their feelings as well, and they have to be able to feel their symbiotic relationship with everything themselves and everything around them.
But as you and I were talking about off air, is that certainly people in my age bracket. I'm a boomer. I think you're a Gen Xer. We were conditioned that leaders are supposed to be non-feeling beings, that we are supposed to be all head. And you and I were talking about the men's movement previously and how important this work is. And the men's movement, for me, shit the bed. It completely shit the bed. I loved the men's movement. I was a huge fan of Robert Bly and Gillette and Sam Keen, and amazing work. And I led those men's groups. And then other things came along that turned the men's movement into completely misogynistic shit that just was terrible. And so men were saying things like, you've got to find your balls. But if you've got your balls and you haven't got your heart, then you're only half a man anyway. And then we meet these new age dingling leaders, or think they're leaders, who've got a ton of heart and they can tell you what color their fucking chakra is, but they've got no balls. And it's this combination of balls and heart that I'm seeing at the level of big time leaders, and I know you are, and Tim Ferris talked about in Titans, is that they're actually now going, okay, I've gone as far as my head will take me.
Yeah, that's it. They've exhausted the intellect.
Yeah.
And so I don't work well with people that are still purely intellect. And if they're just all heart, and then they're just looking at their chakras, like, I don't work well with just hippies. And I didn't fit into and I still to this day, if you're just a business guy, you're batshit boring. If you're just a hippie, nothing's getting done, and you're boring too.
Yep.
And so we need to bring it together and merge the two. And inside of that alchemy, we get this beautiful connection to the earth, to the sacred masculine, and we transcend the synthetic masculine, which has led us to believe that we need to have it all together, and that if we feel anything, we're weak, and that we're separate. When really, actually, what the men need now is a sense of camaraderie, a sense of heart, and a connection to the earth. And through that connection with the earth and their symbiotic relationship with the earth, they get their balls back, they get the heart back, and then they become really of service to the sacred feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go back a little bit to what you were saying before, because as you said in Tim Ferriss's book, Tools for Titans, he talks about that he's not met a billionaire who hasn't done psychedelics.
Yeah,
and I think we need to clear that up, because there's
Sure.
a lot of preconceived ideas around that imagery, which is people partying. It's like and I will put my hand up. I'll admit I've done psychedelics.
yes,
I've been on those sacred journeys, but
Yes.
it wasn't in a nightclub partying, and I
No
don't
way.
think that any of those I would so not want to do in that environment. So, talk to us about what you know about that world in the context of a billionaire or an icon following
Yeah.
that path.
a high performing, like an entrepreneur that actually is not there to party.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'll share this brief background is that I've never done a drug, like a synthetic drug in my life. I've never done a drug in my life. I've never even drank in my life. So it doesn't make me better or worse, whatever. I'm just saying that I grew up in my not my mom and dad, but my mom's mom was an alcoholic, and it was like in our family. So I just chose never to drink.
Right.
And so I
Which
grew
is
up,
pretty good for an Aussie.
yeah, pretty good. I have the advantage of being, I guess I have been 5 years, so I'm moving into Aussie,
Sure.
but I'm from Silicon Valley, and
Sure.
and that is good to live here for 5 years and still not drink. Woo!
Exactly.
So
That's quite the sacred journey.
yeah, I know. And so I just never was called to it. So from 20 years old, I've been in personal development to about, I'm 36, so 8 years now, and made a whole lot of money from my 20s to 27 and beyond, and made some, lost some, whatever. But so I had every opportunity to do every drug I ever wanted and every party I could ever go to, like there it was. I never did it. Mm-hmm. And just never felt called. And then when I was years ago, I got this when I got this email from a friend of mine, and he says, dude, check this out. This is an old friend, one of those old friends where you love them. And then he's just like, hey, check this out. I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. And it's this documentary about these people going to the jungles and puking and in sweat lodges and doing wachuma, doing ayahuasca, doing kambo, all these medicines. I was like, this is hardcore. Mm-hmm. I thought I was hardcore with my personal development work and what I was doing. And I said, this is nothing.
Right.
I realized I was at the kiddie table of personal development. When I was the guy teaching it, I was the guy that had done thousands of hours, taught coaches how to coach, transformation work, and I was like, this is hardcore.
Yeah.
And after learning all those modalities, so I was like, I got to go check this out. Of course, then the programming came in. It's a drug. It's a drug. You don't do drugs, Jeff. You've never done drugs. You're going to lose control. And then I had a meditation practice. I spent lots of years doing ashram stuff and meditation, everything I could do to be weird. And then, sure enough, meditating for like a few weeks, every day, and it wouldn't leave. Mm-hmm. It was like, go to the jungle, go to the jungle. I was like, I don't want to do drugs. I don't do drugs. So I call my mom, I'm like, I'm going to the jungle. And she goes, no, what are you doing? You could die. And then I tell my friends I'm going to the jungle, and then I hear all the stories, the mainstream news, a bunch of bullshit, start telling me how I could die, telling me, about the one, just whatever. So then I'm get scared. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what am I afraid of? Mainstream doesn't know shit. Mainstream is so messed up with the way they think, and they're having their wars and they're drinking their crap, and it's just crap. Yep. So I said, I'm going to go to myself and my own soul. What's my soul say to do? Go to the jungle. So I go to the jungles. And then ceremony, multiple ceremonies, more than the average Westerner. And then go back for, again and again and stuff. And learned how little I know. Yes. And I still don't know shit. It is a mystery. And what I've realized is that I'm not in control and nobody's in control. And all my knowledge of development, of everything about even around business, everything is like pales in comparison to the wisdom that's available in the universe, and how little I knew and how much is beyond my comprehension. So the first experience of many was very humbling, and I had to admit I don't know shit. Right. And then I started to go into the journey of my connection to the earth and my symbiotic relationship to the earth. And then I said, this is incredible. I've developed more empathy with myself and the universe and the people around me, and it's affecting my businesses and my leadership, I got to take this to the highest leverage people I could. Because, people say, why don't you just work with the general public all the time? I said, I need to spend my time with the highest leverage people because I'm only have so much time. I know that if I influence one high-performing entrepreneur, it impacts thousands.
Exactly.
So I made it my mission to write books and to bring the top research for self-awareness and leadership. And I find that this ancient wisdom, which is not ancient, but it is ancient, is the stuff that is missing in self-help, because most self-help is just crap.
Well, I think, and as you know, I had a personal development company for more than 20 years, and I got out. I got out because I was sick of it being in what I termed as the recycling business. Because I was just, people were recycling through. They'd taken Tony Robbins, they'd taken Harv Eker's program, they'd taken Fred Blogg's program, whatever the hell it was, and they'd had an aha. And I was like, at one point, I was like, if I hear another aha, I'm going to fucking scream. Because who gives a shit? Nothing changes. You get bragging rights on an insight, but nothing has actually changed. You have to have what I call a fuck it moment where everything just goes out of the window. And that's what I'm saying about these leaders, and you and I have experienced this personally, but also with leaders, real leaders, is that they get to a place where, as you said, they've exhausted the intellect. They're no longer, and this is the distinction that I think that we need to make clear for people. This is not about the accumulation of knowledge. This is about the application of wisdom, and there's a vast difference. And most people accumulate knowledge like they accumulate money. They want to hoard it. But wisdom is something you share with another, not because you want to brag about how smart you are, but you share it by how you are. Not by what you tell them, but this is how I am in the world. This is who I am. And so, I know that my style is a little different than your style, but I know that we're coming from the same place. I recently interviewed Corey Blake, who's a wonderful man who does amazing work with people. And he and I have that similar thing, but we have a different style. And I said, there's no competition. What's great about this is there are certain people who are going to be pulled to Jeff. There's certain people who are going to be pulled to Corey. The people are going to be pulled to Dove. And there are people who they look at me and I'm a very yang-looking guy. I look like I punch your head in. I'm not that guy, but I look like that. I'm a very yang-looking bloke. I've got a build. I look kind of tough, but I'm massive heart because I believe that you've got to have a head, you've got to have a heart, you've got to be grounded, you've got to have all those things. And what we bring to these people is not, as you said so eloquently there, it's not for everybody. But you don't have to say it's bad. You don't have to say it's wrong, because not everybody can walk that path. And I believe that we are at a time of a great shift. And I believe that that's a double-edged sword, because whenever there's a great shift, there is a polarity between two worlds. And on one end, you're going to have mass ignorance taking the lead, which we're seeing in political right-wing agenda, not in the US, but globally. Raising the Golden Dawn in Greece. You've got the right-wing movement in the UK and in France. I mean, it's big. It's the polarity. That to me is not, it's not great, but it's not bad, because on the other side of that is the counterbalance, which is we've got the women's movement has erupted, and now people are standing up and men are standing up. And I think that this may be, I'm praying, this may be the birth of a new men's movement, which is this head, heart, sacred wisdom, not knowledge. When you think about that double-edged sword, how do you, because I'm sure you're confronted with that too. You have leaders you work with. Talk to us about how you bring that to these leaders who will definitely feel the pull towards the other side. Well, I just got to do this because that's what everybody's doing, which is ignorant. But I got to do that because I want to stay in profit. That pull's going to be there. There's a certain lifestyle to be maintained. And they also feel the pull of their heart and, as I would say, of their soul. Talk to us about how you walk with them through that path.
Well, the better questions. So I often ask them questions that are open-ended. A question might be, what did you really come here for? Now that you've made the money, you have the so-called perfect life, what now? And then they stumble a little bit. And then I ask, so what's beyond achievement for you? Like, you've achieved things, what's beyond that? And there's what you like, and then there's what your soul likes. And so what is your soul really here for? And what are you willing to burn your reputation to the ground for? What are you willing to die for in order to discover what you're willing to live for? And oftentimes they're confronted with the fact that their whole, and I know for myself as well, is like my whole a lot of my companies and even getting to the biggest stage of the world, some of that was derived from insecurities of not being enough. And accumulating wealth was because I didn't feel good enough at times. And so a lot of those movements were made from insecurities of not being enough. So then I compensated. But there was a double-edged sword, which was then on the other side of it, I can now speak to that. And I'm grateful for it. So I wouldn't take it away. One thing I see happening, and when I was in Mexico, I was working with the Sonora Desert Toad, which is 5 times more psychedelic than ayahuasca. It's not for everyone, but is a powerful, powerful medicine that annihilates all sense of self. Any sense of the ego annihilates itself. And not that I don't have an ego now. I mean, it's an interface. It's gonna, the ego's needed. It's just I do my best to live from the heart and let the heart drive the bus. And what I experienced in those moments, which did about 4 ceremonies, it was incredible. We were doing these science experiments where what we did is we dove deep into the toad medicine, and then we would have EKGs and we'd measure, our own science, which is we'd come out of it and we'd plug in and we'd notice there was the exact left and right hemisphere balance after the medicines.
Yes.
So like we're proving that these things actually create balance in left and right hemisphere for more creative thinking and more empathy. And so we were doing that while in ceremonies. And one thing I discovered in this is that true transformation happens at the edge of absolute terror, like terror. And at the same equal to terror is 100% bliss and joy. And it's that alchemy that takes place where the self that is there trying to ration it goes away, and the self that is trying to hold on to self goes away. And in the mystery of the alchemy of the chaos is where universes are born and ourselves are born. And right now we're at the precipice of all leaders in this world and in the world itself at the alchemy of the shadow and the light coming together, and that we are seeing the shadow sides of ourselves. But the shadow needs love too. And when we can embrace the shadow within ourselves as leaders, then ultimately we embrace our full selves, and we actually integrate all parts of ourselves, and we stop trying to ascend and we implode into ourselves, and we go back into the heart, which is basically, in other words, the gateway into, I don't want to, it's a little woo-woo, but the universe.
Yeah.
I don't have any other.
But obviously you and I are on the same page here, and we get it. But I want to make sure that we bring it home for our viewers and our listeners, because as you're watching and listening to this, you're going, these guys have obviously smoked a fat one before they got together.
Yeah,
totally. I haven't even had a beverage. In fact, it's 7 o'clock in the morning where Jeff is. Right? It's like 7 in the morning.
Yeah, totally. It's
a little early for a light beverage. So,
I haven't smoked a toad or anything. No.
Right. He hasn't been licking any toads before the show. So it's not about that. What we're trying to have you grasp is what if your concepts of what it means to lead in any format, whether it's leading in a family, leading in a community, leading in an organization, what if your concepts are limited? What if your concepts are actually the restriction rather than the expansion? And what we're talking about here is an expanded concept of leadership. And furthermore, that many of the great leaders that we know don't think in the way that other people think. So I remember long ago having a conversation with one of my mentors, and it was a fabulous conversation. It's a very long time ago. We was talking, and I was saying that I was kind of pissed off. I'd just been somewhere, hung out with some other people who were in my industry who were far more successful than I was. And I was kind of frustrated. And my buddy, my mentor, says to me, you know what the problem is? And I said, what? He goes, you think they're different than you. And I went, well, they are. They're living in Malibu and they've got this and whatever it was that I was focused on at that nonsense time in my life. And he said, no, they're not different than you. They're exactly the same as you. And it took me a while, but I got that. Everybody's got their own shit to deal with. But there was an interesting piece that as I took that deeper, I began to understand something that I think that people don't grasp. Is there comes a place where there's a level of success that you reach where you go, oh shit, this isn't it. All the promises I told myself, all the rich life fulfillment I thought I was going to feel because I bought a Bentley, or because I bought a Jag, or because I bought a Aston Martin, or because I bought a house on the beach, or whatever it is suddenly not relevant. And I'm now looking for something else. And I think that there's a baptism of fire at the highest level of success that takes people on these journeys that we're talking about. So as you listen and you judge it and you go, oh, this is woo-woo crap, I want you to grasp what Jeff and I are sharing with you here is that some of the people you're looking at and you're going, oh my God, how do they get to that level, have stepped into the very things that you're judging today as woo. And you may even say, yeah, but I'll never do that. I'm not going to get there when I get there. Well, remember, Jeff just told you he was a non-drinker, non-drug guy and realized, oh, that next level isn't about partying. That level is about expanding, imploding as well as exploding the concepts of who we are. And I think that that's what everybody's got to really get to grips with here. This is not about a party, and this is not about some new age woo-woo shit where you wave a crystal around and somebody tells you the color of your chakra. This is about blowing everything apart. And I just don't know. I'm going to be really honest here. I was asked this question today. I had a conversation with a client I worked with for many, many years, a famous actor. He's doing very well. I worked with him for years. I hadn't seen him in years. And I got to have coffee with him at lunch today. And he said, I realized today, we're having this conversation, he's doing really well. And he says, I realized today that some of the things you spoke to me about, I just didn't have the comprehension to grasp at that time. And he goes, it wasn't until years later that I went, oh my God, now I get what Dov's talking about. And this is the thing that I want people to get. So whenever that judgment is firing off in your head about what Jeffrey's talking about, what I'm talking about, I want you to pull back a moment and just ask yourself this question. All the people who gave you the idea that this is crap and woo-woo, fine. Take a look at their lives and ask yourself this one simple question. Do they have the level of joy, success, and fulfillment that you want? If they don't, why the hell are you listening to them? And if the people that Jeff and I are talking about appear, because you don't know them personally, but appear to have the level of joy, success, and fulfillment that you want, maybe your concepts are off. Because if you're going to go somewhere, you might as well look at somebody who was already there and say, well, what are they doing different than what I'm doing? Whether that's in the structure of your business or the structure of your mind. So this is what I'm trying to get across.
I'm really glad you shared that because we as a human family right now, as a collective human family, are very toxic with toxic thinking. We're not sick, but we're definitely toxic. And one thing that's very toxic is the fact that we have been programmed to be skeptics. Mm-hmm. Now, I will use that programming against itself by saying a true skeptic is not really a true skeptic unless they can be skeptical about their skepticism for a moment. And I will share, I can't share the people that I've sat in ceremonies with or any of that. But what I can share is this, is that I grew up in an extremely entrepreneurial family. For me to share this stuff is ridiculous. So how does a guy who grew up in Silicon Valley, who grew up where his father was a budding entrepreneur who struggled, then made it. So he was the first co-founder and CEO of Odesk, which is now known as Upwork now. He no longer is there anymore. He likes to start his companies, and then now he's playing tennis, enjoying his life. And he was on the board of other companies, and I do things with my father. I like to do things with my dad where we consult on boards and things. But more importantly, how does the Silicon Valley guy who grew up in an entrepreneurial family, who went to school, got a degree, who was a business guy, taught business, why would I be so curious about ancient medicines? And how come these other people that, if you read their books, Tim Ferris and others, Joe Rogan, the list goes on and on.
Yep.
And there's a list that many people don't hear about and see.
No, they would
that
never know.
If you knew that list, you would throw your skepticism out the door, because everybody, the billionaires I meet with, the people with hundreds of millions that sell their companies, they all have that. I always have that conversation with them, which is, I thought it was going to be different, and it's not. It reminds me of those greyhound dogs that race, and I looked it up one time. I said, does the greyhound dog ever get the metal rabbit? And there's a metal rabbit that runs around. And you know what? Every once in a while they do. And I was the greyhound dog that got the metal rabbit, that chased the metal rabbit of self-development, of when I make $1 million or more or whatever, then I would finally be somebody. And I bit the rabbit. I chewed on the rabbit, and I realized it was metal, and it's fake, and it's a lie, and it's crap. And I tried to go back to the other greyhounds and tell them that's not what they think it is, and to stop running the race. Not stop running the race, but know that if you're going to run that race, it's a freaking game, and enjoy yourself along the way. But some of them look at me like I'm crazy.
Sure.
But there are some that go, you got something. Okay. I'm gonna still play the game. I'm going after the rabbit, but I know it's a game now. And I'm gonna enjoy this run instead of just letting it pass me by. So for my brothers and sisters out there, it's a race.
Yep.
But it's not real. And self-awareness and leadership and the research of who we are beyond our identities, beyond achievement, beyond what we say are beyond the programming, that's the true discovery. And it's really worth living. And they can take it or leave it.
But I think we've got to address the elephant in the room here. And the elephant in the room here is fear. Fear. This is something that is universal. Everybody's got fear. We're all, it's not a bad thing. You should feel a reasonable amount of fear if you're crossing a busy street and you're not really paying attention. If you're standing on the edge of a high cliff, I know because I fell off one. If you're standing on the edge of a high cliff and you don't have enough safety ropes, fear's not an unreasonable thing. But unreasonable fear is a bad thing. And what's more is that we build a paradigm of beliefs around fear. So people will say, I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to go into this sacred journey because I have these beliefs. But the truth is those beliefs are structured in fear. And so when you, Jeffrey, are working with a leader, let's say a leader who is a multi-million-dollar CEO,
sure.
Right? At that level.
I can talk about my dad. I've been in ceremony with my dad.
Okay.
So I'm happy to talk about my dad and I.
But when you're around one of those people, they're a multi-million-dollar CEO.
Sure.
I want people to grasp, what is their fear? Because I know what it is, but I want to hear from you. What is their fear? Because part of this presumption of joy and happiness and fulfillment at a certain level also is a presumption of all the fear will go away. What is the fear that you kept seeing pop up in these people?
Well, the first fears that tends to show up, and for myself and others, is a fear of what other people will think.
Of course.
That's the biggest fear, is the fear and opinion of others. The second one that they fear is losing their commercial minds. There's a particular guy with billions that he's very afraid of losing his commercial mind, like his edge, and everything that made him sharp, he thinks he's going to lose.
Yes.
And if he does that, like, he won't be so cunning anymore, and which is true, but he'll be smarter about it from a wisdom perspective. So they're afraid of that. The other thing that they're afraid of is like, actually afraid of death. They're afraid they're going to die. But what they're actually afraid of, because in a proper ceremony done well with a proper shaman, you're not going to die. You're going to die. Your ego might die. And so they're afraid of losing their sense of identity. And I know for myself, I am too at times, and still am at times, at times losing identity. But I know I can survive it. And for the first time, is terrifying to lose identity, terrified to also crack open the heart, which means feeling everything they never felt before, but actually feeling it. And that's terrifying to feel. And also the fact, a big one for me and what I've seen with others, is these executives really care. Like, they care about making a difference in this world so much it brings them to their knees. Yes. And what I can share is that they were led to believe that because that they care about their fellow human beings and their employees and their teams, because they care, they were led to believe it was a weakness, when in fact it's the biggest strength.
Yeah.
It is the biggest strength that we care.
Yeah, you and I are definitely on the same page on this. One of the things that working with a president and a CEO of a company right now that we're doing amazing work with their health technology. They're amazing, doing far out scientific stuff.
Cool.
And we're sitting in the room with them and their team, and and it's a father-son, right? So it's a next gen business, and you can see that the tension between them is like palpable, and everybody, of course, all the executives are feeling it. But what's really amazing is that if you talk to them individually, they're such deeply loving, caring men. But the clinging to that freaking identity, the fear that if I actually open my heart here, in front of these other people, in front of the patriarch or in front of the next gener, then I'm going to get crushed. And it's so the opposite of the truth. But this is, I'm glad you said it, because I've said this for years. I think people have no idea. So unlike you, Jeffrey, I'm just going to give a bit of background here. I was not born into an entrepreneurial family. I was an entrepreneur since I was a little kid, starting my first part-time business at 13, full-time business at 15. So awesome. I was definitely entrepreneurial, but I was born in a ghetto in abject poverty. And let me tell you, everybody, this is important for you to grasp. I remember at 14 making the decision that I was out of there. I was done. I made that commitment and I got out at 21. And I remember sitting with my stepmom when I was about 18 and saying, I'm going to be leaving, and her giving me such shit. You've forgotten who you are. You're just trying to get away from your roots. What was she doing? She was saying, you have to hold on to this identity. And I watched myself, in fairness to everybody, for probably the next 6-7 years, claiming my identity of where I was. Not where I presently was, but where I was in history. And so it doesn't matter whether you are a multi-billionaire or you're on welfare. You've been ingrained with an identity, and this is the science of it, because that's part of my thing, is there is a neurological, biological addiction to your identity. And kicking that identity is challenging. And part of this sacred journey stuff is actually, it cuts that tie. Not permanently, but it cuts it long enough for you to go, oh, yes. Really? I'm not that? Now, will you come back? Will your ego come back in full force? Oh, it'll come back with a big stick and try to beat the crap out of you and going, aha, don't you try and do that shit to me again. I'm coming back, baby. But that is the fear, is the loss of identity, which, as you very well said, Jeffrey, is death. So death to the ego is a loss of identity. And this is what you've got to understand. We all have an ego. It's good. It's important. It's what keeps you alive. The ego lets you have the experience because your spirit doesn't care. You're here just to experience. So you walk out in front of a bus, your spirit goes, oh, I've never tried this. Let's do it. Boom. You get hit and it's over. But your ego says, but you can have a few more experiences, so let's not get hit by a bus. The problem is that becomes massively exaggerated. And so if you talk to the stranger, you could die. If you do something different, you could die. If you break your mom's beliefs, your dad's beliefs, your religious beliefs, the beliefs you were ingrained with, you could die. But it's not you, it's the identity that so few people understand. And so my question to you is exactly what Jeffrey was saying to you before, which is, Who are you without all that? That's the deepest question you'll ever answer. Who am I without that? Who am I without my mother, without my father, without my family? Who am I without my lover? Who am I without my money? Who am I without my profession? Who am I without all those fucking coats you put on to tell yourself who you are? When you get to that place and you can answer that question, which I don't know that you can do on your own, honestly. I don't believe you can. I know I couldn't.
There's no language for it.
Then it's like, oh, okay. And it becomes this, as you said, it's this silence that kind of screws with you, because then you can't really explain it to anybody else. And it becomes wisdom in how you live, but not knowledge in what you know.
Thank you. Yes. There's not much more to say, right, except for yes.
We're on the same pages. And this is, I want people to get this.
It reminds me, well, first of all, I'm grateful that somebody that has a platform like yourself is sharing this, because it's time we put self-awareness and leadership as a priority for and this type of work for leaders to become a priority, so that we can bring more empathy to this world, which is much needed right now. Yeah. And maintaining identity coherence is the most important thing for a human being. And if you can move past that fear, you have answered the unanswerable question that lies beyond this commerce language, which is designed for commerce. And we move into the other language, which is the language of feelings, which is the language of the universe. And then we're able to lead from our hearts and not from our heads. And when a Western group goes into the jungle, let's say a couple hours downriver, there'll be a place the medicine man or medicine woman lives. And that particular medicine man or medicine woman, they're there to teach people how to be human and connect with the guy in mind. And everyone comes and visits the village, and all the village comes out and starts to play with the Westerners' technologies, their phones, their pictures, and they're in awe and all. The whole village is in awe. The only one that doesn't come out is the shaman. Mm-hmm. And he or she doesn't come out. And the Westerners will go into the village, and then they'll meet the shaman or the medicine man or medicine woman. And the shaman will not give a shit about their technology. He won't care about what the person's done, how many billions he's made. The shaman looks the man or the woman up from head to toe. What kind of man or woman are you? How much have you loved is what the shaman's asking in their eyes. How much have you loved? How much joy and fear have you experienced in this life? And have you embraced life fully? And that is what the medicine man or medicine woman does as he looks over the man or woman Westerner. And at death, because that's all there will be at that time of death, is did you love and how fully did you love? And that's why the medicine man knows what matters, and he doesn't give a shit about what you've achieved. So we must as leaders move beyond our achievement. We must make self-awareness a key attribute of leadership, and we must bring our hearts to lead, or else we are fucked.
Yeah, I so agree with you. So let's bring it back to business, because we're talking about leadership here, and it applies to business, and we're definitely on a different path than most people would talk about it. Let's talk about this in the context of being a C-suite leader, and we know that engagement is at an all-time low, terrible.
Yes.
I would go so far as to say it's not a problem, it's a crisis.
Yes.
I know where I would go with this, and I'm pretty sure we're going to go to the same place. But talk to us about the practical application of what we're talking about in the context of being a leader and creating engagement.
Okay. So the first thing is, when there's an engagement problem in your company, usually you as a CEO need to look in the mirror and realize that you're not engaged in your company anymore. And it's not like it's bad. It's just like, you started the company, and what got you started was you were engaged, and then the company got big enough at a certain inflection point where you might not think it's yours anymore, or you're bored. Mm-hmm. And you need to look in the mirror or work with a coach or something to just help you work through your own lack of engagement in your own life and your own soul. And so you as a leader need to take responsibility for your lack of engagement. If you ask a leader, do you lie to yourself? And the answer is, no, I don't. And they do that, they're not ready for change. A leader that's willing to admit that they lie to themselves and admit to that they need to admit the fact that they think they're engaged or they pretend to be engaged, and really they're not. Mm-hmm. So if their company's lacking engagement, it's their freaking problem. Right. First, then the next step is find out why you're not engaged and uncover it. And it might not even be the company that you might be not engaged in your marriage. You might be not engaged with your kids' lives.
You may not be engaged in your own life.
Exactly. Period. All parts affect the whole. You have changed one area, it changes everything. So we look at all areas. Then the second step is, let's say you get the leader engaged. Then you got to go figure out and ask yourself. I had a meeting with the guy that started the Dollar Beard Club. $20 million in the last 20 months. And he's an incredible CEO, and he's fun. People can look him up, the Dollar Beard Club. He's a riot. He's totally eccentric. But anyways, what he said to me was really great. He said, take a look at your staff and your team and ask yourself, if somebody said to you, you have to fire everybody and make it known that you have to fire everybody, who would you fight to keep? Those are the only ones you should keep.
That's a great question, eh?
Yeah, wow. As an unengaged leader, most likely you have unengaged leaders in your company.
Absolutely.
So what will happen is you get re-engaged, then the rest of your company, you're going to find and smell the ones that aren't engaged too. And you know who hired them? You, because you weren't engaged, so you attracted them. Then what you do is you clean house and you fire everyone that sucks and you re-engage back in your company, and you only keep the ones you would fight for. And then what you do is you rebuild your company from the inside out, because you were the problem, that you as the leader, and you re-engage yourself, and then you re-engage your company, and you fire everyone that's in the way, and with love, of course. They move on, and you polarize, and then you build a new culture, because most likely if you weren't engaged, you have no culture in your company.
Absolutely.
So you build a culture of learning, a culture of development, a culture of training like you, and bringing those people in, a culture of personal development, a culture of connection, a culture of camaraderie, and you build that back in your company, and your profits and your engagement will go through the roof. But there will be a time that there's a transition. So hopefully you have some bankroll and expect a shakeout.
Yeah. You and I are so on the same page. There's a piece in my book, as you know, where I talk about that engagement. The problem with, you look at millennials, you want to blame millennials because of the lack of engagement. And I say there's only one problem with engagement, and it's at the leadership level. And if you're a disengaged leader, you will not hire anybody who's really engaged. You may, but they won't stay engaged for very long, because you are infectious. Your lack of engagement is infectious. Therefore, if you're engaged, you're infectious. And so if a deeply engaged leader has deeply engaged people that work for him, you're absolutely right. And so few people want to do that. But as you know, everybody wants to do this. They want to point at somebody else and say that the millennials are the problem. Millennials are not the problem. That person over there is not the problem. You got to get to a place where you are so on fire with your purpose that it's aligned and it engages you, which will engage everybody else. And it's one of the things we say when we come in to help you develop a culture that is purpose-driven with authentic leaders who are driven by their own purpose. And what we say is, when you get this, we promise you that you're going to double the length of the tenure of the people who work with you. We promise you that, which is going to save you a shitload of money. But here's what we want you to know. Same thing you just said. You're going to lose some folks. Can you live with that? And some of the folks you're going to lose might be high producers. And they go, what? Really? Yeah, because they're in it for the money, so they're high producers. But you won't create an engaged culture. And what's more is, if you've got a high producing diva in your organization, you've created a culture that supports that, which tells everybody that's what's important. So now everybody's about driving towards money. Nobody's really engaged. And what they go is, the boss loves Bob because Bob creates all the money, but Bob's a diva, so I'm out of here. So you're losing people all the time. This message is vitally important. I really appreciate you bringing it up, because it's important to bring back to people. Listen, I want to jump a little bit further here and go to you. Mm-hmm. On this show, I like to ask this question because it's my observation. I know that you've done a lot of journey, a lot of self-work. You and I have both been on that path for a long, long time.
Yeah.
My observation is simple. It's this, is that the most successful people I've ever met, and I'm not classifying successful by dollars, although that's part of it. Yeah. The most successful, fulfilled people I've ever met are obsessed. They're obsessed. They're obsessed with something. If there's a movie about the thing they're obsessed about, they can't help but watch it. In fact, it's the part of the movie they talk about with everybody else. If there's a TV show, a documentary, they have to watch it. If there's a book, a magazine, they have to read it. If there's a conversation going on that's completely inappropriate to where they are, but it's about that thing, they have to jump in. What are you obsessed with, Jeff?
It's a good question, man. I'm obsessed with ancient wisdom and bringing it to these times. There's so much to learn from the jungles and from the ancient ones. And we have lost our elders in the Western world. Our elders have become put into retirement homes. And our elders, some of them, they haven't had the experiences of a true elder. They haven't danced. They haven't done any work on themselves. They've been filled with toxins and over-medicated, so we've lost our elders. And so essentially we've lost our way. And what I'm obsessed with is ancient wisdom in modern times and self-awareness and leadership. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm always doing the best I can with the choice that I have, is finding that edge. So I guess what I'm obsessed with as well is finding my edge and living my edge.
Very cool. I think you'd agree that, certainly in my experience, that leaders, real leaders, are committed to their own ongoing growth and development. So I'm going to ask you, what is an area that you are currently working on in yourself and in your business? What are you digging into for yourself?
It's been challenging for me, and I'm glad being on this podcast is really great because you see and have and also see the direct experience of ancient wisdom into these modern times. Through this growth of my own soul's journey, I've been in conflict with the old programming of how business is done. And so my soul is on fire with ancient wisdom and also the fact that with the newfound wisdom and gnosis, that I don't know much about really this whole universe. There's 100 million galaxies, and this is a mystery to me. But the old paradigm and the programming that still exists in my mind that is continually being dissolved is that I'm supposed to know everything. Success is about having money, having a house, having lots of customers, being a big deal, all that crap. That's what success is. And so I am sometimes in conflict with my own soul, but my soul is starting to burn brighter and brighter and burn out those programs.
Fabulous. So what's the one question? I mean, you do a lot of interviews, right?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm not in conflict. The programming is in conflict of my soul's journey.
I get it. So you do lots of podcasts, lots of interviews, all kinds of stuff. So what's the one question that no one asks you that you wish they would?
It's the question that transcends language. And I don't think it can be asked in this commerce language, because this is a language designed to separate and to commerce and to exchange. Mm-hmm. So any true question that is true to my soul is not going to be held in this commerce language. It's going to be held in a language beyond all of our comprehension, but we'll be able to feel it. So if the question were to come to me, it would come to me in a song. It would come to me in feelings. And I guess if I were to explain and translate the question, it would be, how do you experience your own soul's journey, your own soul's beauty for this, for your own soul's sake? And that answer would come in direct experience, and it would not come in language.
Fantastic, mate. Fabulous. So, final question here, which is this. You get to put one thing on your gravestone. Clearly it won't be long, so you can't put a lot on there. What do you want on there? What's the one thing you want on there? I'll even let you have two parts of it if you want.
No, it's cool. I would just put a feather, because we as a human beings are all united by feathers. And there are many feathered ones, or winged ones united by feathers doing the work. And whatever work that is, we all are united by it. And as we're all united by feathers, in this time or other times, then we get to witness and let unfold the co-creation of heaven on earth. So there'd be a feather on my tombstone.
The feather would be Richard Bach.
Yeah, he's amazing. It's my favorite book.
That's so okay. So I'm going to push a little bit. Give me a couple of favorite books.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach, favorite book. One by Richard Bach, which was actually the book. I never was a reader in college. And that particular book,
the time travel book.
Yeah, made me read.
Yeah.
And then the other book, the third book, would be a blank book, because I have a book in me just like everyone else. So there'd be blank pages.
That's interesting. I have certain Bibles, that's what I call them. Khalil Gibran, the Prophet, without a doubt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And Richard Bach's Illusions, which is the feather.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that book is so good.
That's my
I love that book.
And the way it's my Bible is because I carry those books with me, and I've given thousands of copies away. And so I'd been teaching for about 2 years. So I was 26 at the time. I'm 59 now. And one of the guys I was teaching came to me, he says, "Did you write a book?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "Come on, you wrote a book." And I said, "Honestly, I didn't." And he said, "You wrote a book under another name, didn't you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I've got this book, and I swear to God, it's what you teach." And I was like, "Really?" And it was Illusions, and it was mind-blowing for me. It was like, oh my God, somebody actually wrote down the stuff that's in my head. Wow, that is a beautiful book.
You know, that book...
That changed my life, that book.
It brought me to tears. I remember reading that book and actually just, like, tears, just for some reason I felt recognized.
Yeah.
And that book changed my life, for sure. Like, it would definitely be in the same category of favorite books. And when you said it, the whole book just downloaded.
Yeah,
like such a
it's
good
interesting
book.
because for me, Khalil Gibran's The Prophet and Richard Bach's Illusions, for me, there's only one way I can call those books. I don't call them favorite books. That's what I'm using as a language here. But what they are for me is home.
Yeah.
It's
they're home.
It's like, okay, I get it. Right? And
Every leader should read that book.
When people ask me, and I'm on interviews and say, "What's the best leadership book you can read?" And I always say those two, and people are like, "Well, that's not leadership books." You're right, but they're exactly the books that leaders need to read.
Exactly.
Jeff, it's been fantastic having you here, mate, and I really want to thank you for being here. It's been fabulous. Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you, potentially bringing you in to work with them or whatever, in any way to tap into your resources. Let our viewers, our listeners know how they can reach out to you.
They can go to Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Slayter, SLAYTER.com. I have conversations with my dad and I talking about $100 million acquisitions, and then, documentaries on psychedelics, like everything. So they should go there and download everything and go to town.
Fabulous. So please, I encourage you to go there. I want to thank Jeff Slayter for joining us today. It's been really awesome. And I really want to thank you for tuning in. And I realize that this is off the beaten path, certainly outside of the box of what your traditional thinking is. And I really want to encourage you to go back and listen to this, watch this show again and again. I promise you, I guarantee that if you listen to it the second time, you'll be blown away of how much you missed the first time. And when you listen to it the third time, you'll go, how did I miss it the second time? Because this is stuff that's interfering with your belief systems, and your ego mind will go, whoa, that was important. Woof, let's get rid of that. And by listening to it over again is going to take you to a depth you've never even considered. This show, I guarantee, is going to resonate and rattle your cage a little bit, or it's going to repel you away. And if it does, that's okay. But if there's something in you that goes, what the fuck are these guys talking about? You need to watch this and listen to it 3-4 times and reach out to Jeffrey or reach out to me, because I promise you, that's the path you're supposed. That, as Jeff said earlier, that's your soul calling. It's the work that I do. It's the work that Jeff does. I do soul leadership, and people are like, soul, isn't that a bit woo? Yeah, in the concept of what you understand, yeah, it is. But what it truly is, it's the most solid, grounded thing in the world. So please listen over and over again. Again, thanks to Jeff Slayter. It's been great having you here, mate. Really appreciate it. So again, go to jeffreyslater.com. You can find out more about him. We'll certainly post that URL for you. And I want to remind you that the research shows that the companies that get to the top and stay there are the ones that are indeed purpose-driven. You've got to find your purpose as a leader. You've got to find your purpose as a company. That's what's creating the lack of engagement. That's what's creating the need for you to completely always looking to bring new people on. If you are looking to really engage your people and become purpose-driven, we are available. Come find out about us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty essence of your organization. Full Monty Leadership, providing you the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about what you really believe about leadership. And is it the truth, or is it, in fact, the prison that's stopping you becoming the leader you truly can be? Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.